I never imagined a simple act of kindness could change everything. The billionaire's tears fell like rain from a dark cloud, surprising everyone around. The air was thick with tension, electricity crackling with disbelief as his rugged face crumpled, vulnerability laid bare before us. A hush fell over the crowd, our collective breath held. Who was this man, this powerful figure brought to his knees by a small gesture? I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I stood there, heart racing, watching. My hands trembled, a mix of fear and curiosity. Around me, whispers curled like smoke, people leaning in to catch every word. Did you see that? He actually cares. Someone gasped, their voice laced with awe. His name was Lucas Gray, a titan of industry, known for his cold dealings and no-nonsense attitude. But in that moment, he looked just like us, broken and raw. My own chest tightened, the lump in my throat building as I thought of my own struggles, the weight of bills and expectations pressing down. I knew that feeling of hopelessness all too well. Lucas had a reputation. A ruthless negotiator. He used his wealth like a shield. All of it untouchable until now. Just a week ago, I had witnessed the fallout of his latest venture. A factory closure, a small town ripped apart. The fallout spread like wildfire, families shattered by one decision made miles away. His name hung in the air, poison dripping from everyone's lips. No one believed he could change. But then there was Sarah. She worked at the factory too. The kindest soul I'd ever met. Always with a smile. A glowing light in the dark gloom. She gave away her lunch to needy friends and opened her home to those who needed shelter. I admired her, but her kindness came at a price. She was now teetering on the edge of despair. I wanted to help, but my own life was too messy. The fear of failure clung to me. And then, somehow, Sarah found Lucas in the crowd, crying. She must have seen the anguish in his eyes. Without hesitation, she approached him. She didn't know who he was, didn't care. Only saw a man broken, and reached out her hand. It was a simple touch, but it sent ripples through the air. The silence deepened, heavy with tension. Everyone watched, eyes wide, breaths collectively staggered. I held my breath. Would Lucas snarl? Would he dismiss her like he had others? But he didn't. Instead, tears streamed down his face. Those strong shoulders shook as he let the walls crumble. It was overwhelming. My heart swelled and broke all at once. Then came the murmurs again. Disbelief swept through like a wave. Is this real? Can he change? I felt the heat of their eyes, digging into me, waiting for answers. I was desperate for hope. Maybe, just maybe, something had shifted. But then I saw the shadows lurking. People whispered darkly about the consequences of his actions. How could he be trusted? Questions buzzed in my mind. What if this was just a show? How could one moment change so much? As the crowd stirred, I felt my heart race again. The energy throbbed, an almost palpable pulse in the air. I was caught between despair and hope, between the past and a potentially brighter future. Then Lucas opened his lips, his voice breaking the silence. I've hurt you, he began, and all eyes sharpened, hearts racing with the promise of revelation. But before he could share more, a sudden noise shattered the moment, a crash echoing through the street. A car barreled through, tires screeching, a flash of chaos and fear engulfed us all. I gasped, my heart pounding in my chest as the crowd erupted into chaos. What just happened? What would it mean for Lucas, for Sarah, for us all? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me. Out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The world around us shifted in a heartbeat. The screeching tires echoed like a dark omen, cutting through the fragile atmosphere we had just been trying to stitch back together. People stumbled back, hearts racing, nerves twisting into knots. My breath hitched, fear clawing at my throat as I scanned the chaos, desperately trying to make sense of the unfolding disaster. Light flared briefly as the car careened to a stop, kicking up a cloud of dust and debris. My eyes darted to Lucas. He stood frozen, shock etched across his features, the weight of vulnerability from moments before seeming to evaporate in an instant. I could scarcely fathom what this event could mean. Had his moment of raw honesty come to an abrupt end, as mercilessly as the tires had barreled through? Then came the screams. "Get back! Move away!" The voices crashed over one another like waves, hysteria lapping at our feet. My heart sank as I saw the unmistakable silhouette of a body sprawled in the street. The crowd surged forward, involuntarily, begrudgingly drawn toward the scene like moths to a flame. Sarah, bless her heart, was already moving forward, her instinct to help kicking in. She was the embodiment of compassion, and somehow, even in turmoil, she was a beacon of hope. I followed her, my feet leading me despite the dread that gripped my insides. As we reached the edge of the chaos, I noticed that several others had already gathered. A woman knelt beside the victim, her hands trembling but steady as she pressed them onto the wound, no doubt trying to staunch the flow of blood pooling beneath. The pulse of urgency surged through me, igniting a wildfire of fervor I didn't realize I possessed. We couldn't just stand idle. "Call an ambulance," I yelled, the words pushed from my lips as if flung into the air. Someone nodded, fumbling for a phone, the panic overshadowing any rational thought. And amid the fray, Lucas finally broke from his stupor, stepping forward, though the warmth he'd shown moments before had dissipated like smoke in the wind. "Don't move him," he shouted out to the others, his authoritative voice wrapping around the crowd, demanding attention. It was strange to see him in that moment, an emblem of power still, but with something more raw than his regular bravado. I edged closer, moving to support Sarah as she assessed the situation, her brow furrowed in concentration. For a moment, our eyes locked, and I could see the trembling resolve in her gaze. She was fighting her own trepidation, but I could sense her determination, wanting to help in whatever way she could. Though the chaos swirled around us, a current of unspoken understanding passed between us. We were in this together, and even among fear, we would stand tall. But then, a haunting wail pierced the air, pulling me back to the unfolding reality. The woman from the crowd was sobbing, her voice unraveling words of desperation. "A mother, perhaps?" I swallowed hard. My heart ached painfully at the sight of the lifeless figure and the cries for help. Lucas, however, was functioning with extraordinary clarity. He managed to assess the injured person with a surgeon's precision, his icy demeanor redirecting into fierce protectiveness. "Someone get a blanket. Keep him warm. I need something to elevate the legs." He spoke with an unwavering determination, commandeering as if he were back in the boardroom steering negotiations that I watched as the crowd obeyed him. Something shifting in the air once again. The respect that floated through the masses began to twinkle with new life. Could the man who had so cruelly toppled lives suddenly become the one saving them? The irony gnawed at me, but it couldn't dim the flicker of hope igniting inside. My chest tightened again as Sarah clenched my hand tightly, her strength a tether amidst the chaos. "Stay with me," she breathed, her eyes shimmering fiercely as she looked at me. "We have to believe that even in darkness, light can shine." As we waited, I glimpsed Lucas again, his deep brown eyes brimming with humanity. What was this sudden transformation? Was it possible that Sarah's touch had awakened something dormant within him? My thoughts swirled like autumn leaves caught in a gust of wind, darting in every which direction. Moments later, the wailing sirens broke the tension in the air, slicing through the anxiety like a knife. The ambulance careened into view, red lights flashing like a beacon in the night. Relief and dread warred within me as they poured out of the vehicle with practiced urgency. But just as they reached our makeshift scene, someone shrieked from the crowd, "Look!" My heart plummeted as I turned to see a figure emerging from the shadows, wearing a dark hood. A chill skittered down my spine. Recognition struck as the person flashed an all-too-familiar glint of malice. Before I could comprehend, it dawned on me like a horrifying realization. This was not just chaos. This was a reckoning, and what came next would determine not only Lucas' fate, but the fragile bridge of hope Sarah and I had just begun to build. Standing at the precipice of uncertainty, the feeling of change crackled in the air around us. The hope we clung to was suddenly entwined with the dark ink of looming threats. What would they do? What did they want? The figure stepped forward, the darkness of the hood concealing their face but failing to mask the intensity of their presence. I could feel Sarah's hand tighten around mine, her breath quickening in unison with the anxiety clubbing against my ribcage. The air was thick with unease, and I could sense the crowd's collective tension as they fell silent, eyes darting, bracing for the next moment to unfold. "Lucas," the dark figure called, their voice low yet gravelly, resonating through the icy grip of night. As if locked in a trance, Lucas turned, the fire in his eyes dimming at the sight of this uninvited ghost from the past. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice shaking but edged with a bravery that surprised even me. Sarah tightened her grip, her eyes wide with fear, but I felt compelled to protect. "Someone who knows more than you think," the figure replied, stepping into the light, revealing a face I recognized far too well. Once part of his inner circle, now a harbinger of his darkest truths. Javier, a former associate, now a specter of betrayal, sailed across the minefield of my memories with ease. Lucas paled, his stoic facade cracking, and I could almost see the wildfire of regret echoing in his eyes. "What do you want?" he asked, voice strained and taut, as though each word was a thread holding him together. There was a stillness in the air, an electrifying pause that hung just long enough to feel the weight of inevitability. Javier smirked, slow and calculated, weaving a web of intangibility around each word he said next. "You think you've transformed, don't you? You believe you can save him? Change your world? But we both know the truth. It doesn't matter how many lives you try to piece back together. There will always be something lurking in the shadows, waiting to pull you back into the plunge." Lucas flinched as if struck, and for a brief moment, I could see the shadows of guilt reflected in his features, echoing years' worth of unacknowledged pain. I wanted to reach out, to remind him of the light that had just sparked between us. But that moment withered, faded under Javier's steady gaze aimed now at me. "Let's not forget, darling," he said, addressing me directly. "It wasn't just Lucas who collected enemies along the way. You, too, have made quite the impression. You'll soon learn that kindness is a currency more often spent in deception than in love." With each word, he carved out a deeper chasm between us, as if his very presence clawed at the fabric of hope we had just begun to stitch. In that moment, I felt something shift, a feeling slowly breaching the surface anger. I had seen Lucas crouch beneath the weight of his own past, but now, as fear escalated in the air, I felt the knot of desperation growing tighter. "Enough," I shouted, challenging the predatory aura surrounding Javier. "We are not afraid of you." For a fraction of a second, a flicker of surprise entered Javier's eyes, quickly morphing into contempt as he stole a glance at the body on the ground, the paramedics still attempting to save a life teetering on the brink. "Ah," he drawled, "but this is just the beginning. I thought you were tougher, but you seem just as fragile as Lucas. It's only a matter of time before the world reminds you what you're truly made of." The ambulance doors swung open, and the medical team moved with urgency, their verbal commands clamoring over each other as they navigated the chaos. Javier turned his back on us, a predatory retreat into the shadows, a dark laugh lingering like a ghost in the air. "See you soon, Lucas," he called, and with that, he vanished back into the turbulent night, leaving an unsettling silence choking the streets. The paramedics worked tirelessly, voices blending into a mechanical hum, but all I could focus on was the sadness pooling in Lucas' eyes as he knelt beside the fallen victim, an estranged blend of gratitude and pain. "Lucas," I whispered, but he simply shook his head, hot breaths escaping him, emotions a riot on his face. "We can't lose him," he murmured, desperation lacing his tone. It was a plea, an aching wish that reverberated. Through the silence, through the fray, I felt a surge of helplessness battling within me. Waves of frustration crashed against my yearning to comfort him, but I stood armored by fear of retribution from Javier's cryptic words. "We'll figure this out," I promised, though the resolute sound of my voice felt hollow against the backdrop of uncertainty. As the paramedics prepped the victim for transport, I instinctively reached for Lucas, offering a hand to keep him grounded. But then I saw a collection of faces in the crowd who were not merely bystanders, but witnesses with knowing glances exchanged. Danger simmering behind a facade of casual indifference flickered in their eyes. Each silhouetted figure felt predatory, like they too had been summoned to bear witness to the unfolding of our fateful reckoning. And just as the ambulance doors began to close behind them, my heart dropped at the realization of where we stood straddling a precarious precipice no one had expected to find us on. A web of complex ties was closing around us, and the truth hung heavily in the air among the flickers of hope. Dark shadows lingered, ready to pounce at the first sign of weakness. As the vehicle pulled away, fading into the distance, a new silence enveloped us, punctuated only by the sporadic echoes of chaos left behind. And it struck me then a kind of resolve we thought was forged within the spark of vulnerability was now shadowed by dark forces that had relentlessly followed Lucas. Nothing had been resolved. The ripple effects of Javier's haunting presence were yet to come. I shivered, the cool air stinging as I stood amidst a crowd that was cloaked in uncertainty, my heart cracking open as I faced what lay ahead. Did we stand even a chance against the darkness that threatened to swallow us whole? Would the outcomes we hoped for crumble under the relentless weight of our interconnected pasts? And deep down, the most chilling realization of all, spite always had a way of returning, a reminder that kindness may yet prove to be our greatest vulnerability. The night was a shroud, thick and suffocating, as we stood in the remnants of the chaos that Javier had stirred. I could see the flicker of alarm flash through Lucas's eyes, an unbidden recognition that their past intertwined with present dangers like a woven tapestry woven with sharp thorns. "Lucas," I said softly, trying to penetrate the barricade of anxiety that enveloped him. The moon hung high above, casting silvery beams that illuminated the concern etched across his face. "We need to trust each other. Whatever is coming, we can face it as long as we stick together." He didn't respond, his gaze fixed on the darkened corners of the street where lurkers could still be silently combing the shadows, examining us as prey. It felt like the ground beneath us had shifted, each tremor forging new fissures in what had once been solid ground. At a flicker of movement caught my eye. One of the onlookers from earlier stepped towards us slowly, lips pressed in a thin line of contemplation. Therese, a woman with whom we had shared fleeting moments of kindness within our small community, approached tentatively. Her auburn hair glimmered in the dim light, and I could see empathy brewing behind her eyes, a beacon against the storm. "Lucas, Sarah," she said, pausing to lock eyes with Lucas, reading the tornado of emotions swirling within. "I know things seem dark, but you're not alone in this. You've both touched lives here, even when it felt like falling onto deaf ears." Something in her words pierced through the layers of despair that had begun to settle around us. I felt Lucas' stature lift slightly under the weight of hope. It was just a mere flicker, a tiny flame among vast darkness, but it was enough. "We can help you," Therese insisted, a steely resolve filling her voice. "There's a group of us from the neighborhood, people who have witnessed the shadows that linger. We've prepared for situations like this. You're safe with us." I could sense Lucas' tension easing, the crease in his brow softening as the fear that had enshrouded him began to dissipate. Perhaps this unexpected kindness was a testament to the very essence of community and unwavering support, even when storms raged around us. But the gravity of the moment was suddenly eclipsed by a foreboding silence, the street lights flickering, as if they too were unsure of the light ahead. Out of the depth of the quiet, however, came a sound of familiar, jarring ringtone. Lucas' phone buzzed with harsh urgency, and the warmth of hope instantly chilled into dread. "Not now," he begged under his breath, but his fingers already hovered over the screen, curiosity wedged between caution and necessity. I felt the panic seep into my own chest, urging him not to answer, not when uncertainty loomed like a predator. But Lucas was drawn, almost magnetically, to the shape of the screen lighting up his eyes. "It's a call from my father," he whispered, cringing as though the name itself could break open the dam of buried emotions. "Are you going to pick up?" I asked quietly, and I saw the walls around him begin to fortify once again. He looked between Therese and me, a storm brewing on his face. "I have to," he answered, squaring his shoulders. Each ring became a symbol of dread that fell over me like a heavy blanket as he finally swiped to answer. The connection crackled with static, but I could hear the voice on the other end, rough and strained. "Lucas, it's time we had a talk. About the choices you've made." His father's voice reverberated, wrapping around us like a vice. I felt the tension snap, a new fear igniting the air. What's he talking about? I whispered urgently that I don't know. Lucas admitted, the color draining from his face. I thought he'd finally let me in. His voice broke, an unyielding tremor thudding against the melancholy. It was clear this was a call not just about choices, but of reckoning. Your choices have led to repercussions you can't ignore. Meet me tomorrow, his father demanded, the finality coiling into his tone sending dread crawling up my spine. Lucas swallowed hard, the words ripping away the fragile tapestry of hope. We had started to weave. Wait, Daunt, but the call had ended, leaving a chilling silence in the wake of command. I could see his hands trembling now as he disconnected, eyes wide with shock. What does he mean? The answer floated just out of reach, too damning to be uttered. As the clouds above churned ominously, the most haunting reality loomed between us. Javier's shadows were gathering strength, infiltrating our lives through the very foundation of the family Lucas had once sought solace in. That we have to leave this place, Therese urged, her voice brimming with urgency. But I knew that would not erase the truths that had been unearthed. Where do we even go? Lucas asked helplessly, his world teetering. The grasp of despair tightened, reassurance felt insufficient. As I scanned the faces of the onlookers once more, I caught a glimpse of a dark figure slipping through the back streets, a familiar gait, unmistakable. My heart dropped. The shadows were wrapped tightly around us, and I couldn't shake the feeling that revelations awaited, the kind that would shake us to our core. Lucas caught my eye and, against the weight of what we had just learned, I felt a surge of emotion rise again. Resolve. Well, find a way to face it, whatever it is, I insisted, gripping his hand tightly. Yet, even as I spoke the words, my heart whispered the truth. Javier was no ghost of the past. He was a lurking, avowed predator, and we were mere pieces on a chessboard drawn to chaos, teetering ever closer to his grasp. Just when I thought we were learning to navigate the darkness, a new chapter was written. Uncertainty flooded in, and the shadows had once again begun to gather. The next day dawned with a muted light, the sun barely piercing the heavy clouds that loomed above us like a palpable weight. It should have felt like a fresh start, a chance to breathe in the crisp air and reclaim what had been lost. Instead, the dread from Lucas' phone call hung over us like a thundercloud, and with every passing moment that ticked against the silence, it felt as though we were being pulled deeper into a storm we couldn't escape. We had found a temporary refuge in Teresa's homey, a quaint two-bedroom that seemed to exhale kindness with every corner. The warmth of crimson walls and the aroma of fresh bread baking in the oven momentarily eased the burden on our hearts. Yet, as I glanced at Lucas across the small, round table, I could see the weight of apprehension bearing down on him, etching deeper lines across his brow. How long do you think we can stay here? He finally asked, his voice muffled by the uncertainty that lingered in the air. That we can stay as long as we need to, Therese reassured him, sliding a plate piled with steaming slices of homemade bread toward him. But if there's a threat out there, we can't hide away forever, Lucas. People like Javier don't get easily deterred. Yeah, he responded hollowly, tearing a piece of bread between his fingers without appetite. And my father will want answers. I can feel it. What if we confront him? I suggested, driven by some insatiable need to dispel the terrible weight hovering over us. Maybe if you speak to him, everything can be unraveled. We can understand what choices he thinks you've made. Lucas' head lowered, and despair washed over him, overshadowing the brief flicker of hope my words were meant to ignite. Do you really think that will help? He's always been controlling, always wanted me to follow his path. But it's also your life, Lucas, I countered gently, realizing how much he needed to hear it. You don't have to bear the burden of his choices. We've fought too hard to let anyone dictate our lives again, especially him. Our conversation faded into a silence filled with whispering doubts. A sudden knock echoed from the front door. A stirring of unease fluttered in my stomach. Therese glanced at us with concern before making her way to the door. The moment she opened it, the air shifted, and I felt a prickle of recognition. Standing there, drenched in a light drizzle from the rain that had begun to patter against the ground, was someone I didn't expect to see. Isabella, Lucas' sister. Her pale features expressed subtle confusion mingled with concern, which quickly morphed into relief upon meeting her brother's gaze. Lucas, she gasped, stepping across the threshold with an urgency that betrayed her calm exterior. I didn't know where else to go. What are you doing here? Lucas' voice held a mixture of surprise and worry. You shouldn't be out in this mess. I had to come find you, she insisted, her voice trembling with unspoken fears. I didn't know if you were safe. I heard what happened last night about Javier. How do you know? He asked, narrowing his eyes. I overheard Dad talking with one of his associates. They're concerned about you, and they believe Javier is coming for something bigger. I didn't know what to do but come to you. I thought maybe we could figure this out together. The revelation struck a chord within me. The familial ties, once tenuous and frayed, were now manifesting a desperate need for unity against the looming threat. Still, Lucas' expression shifted from surprise to defiance, his jaw tightening. What does that mean, Isabella? Are you on their side? No, Lucas, she exclaimed, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I'm scared for you, and for me. Dad doesn't see how it affects us. He's consumed by his need for control. Her plea hung in the air, heavy but saturated with a glint of hope, a reminder that perhaps they weren't entirely at odds, that even in the darkest of circumstances, support could be found in unexpected places. What do we do? I asked quietly, trying to gauge the volatile emotions swirling between them. Tomorrow, when Dad wants to meet. He'll be there with you, Isabella declared, this newfound determination shaping her voice. She turned to me, pleading for solidarity. We need all hands on deck to face him. Maybe together we can understand what he truly wants from Lucas. Lucas opened his mouth, but no words emerged. He seemed caught between the fear of the past pulling at him and the desire to fight the future. Finally, he nodded slowly, the acceptance resonating within our small circle, sending hesitant ripples of resolve through us. We gathered together in quiet acceptance of the challenges that loomed ahead. I couldn't shake the feeling that Javier's shadow was only beginning to stretch across our paths, and somehow, our destinies were intricately woven into this tangled web. And just as relief pierced through the tension of the moment, a sudden crash shattered the stillness as my phone buzzed with a new message, drawing all eyes to me. The notification blazed on the screen, the words unfurling like a heavy fog around us. Meet me in the alley behind Teresa's house. I have something you need to know about Lucas, Javier. A chill raced down my spine. The looming threat had set its sights on us directly, and as the reality of the invitation sank in, I realized that it wasn't just Lucas's father we had to contend with. We were now entangled in a dance with darkness, where our every choice hinged on a razor's edge, and the game was taking a sinister turn. The tremors of dread coursed through me as I read Javier's message. The words blared ominously in my mind, drowning out the ambient noise of the steady rain that drummed softly against the window. I felt the air grow heavy around us, the moment stretching into an unbearable silence that seemed to echo my racing heart. Who's it from? Isabella asked, peering over my shoulder, her brows knitting together in concern. Javier, I managed to whisper, feeling the name slip from my lips like a curse. Lucas' eyes widened, and I could see the shifting emotions playing out on his face: fear, anger, and a flicker of something darker. Delete it, he commanded, his voice firm. But I held my phone closer, the weight of the choice hammering my resolve. No, wait. This could be important. We need to know what he wants, I argued, glancing at him for support. Therese, who had been listening silently, stepped forward, her brow furrowed with a mix of worry and comprehension. We can't just ignore him. If he wants to meet, maybe it's an opportunity for us to gain some leverage. Information is power. Well, I don't want any part of whatever game he's orchestrating, Lucas said, his voice laced with defiance, but I could see the turmoil within him bubbling just below the surface. This is exactly what he wants to pull us deeper into his chaos. Lucas, he's already involved. Hiding won't save us, I said gently, aware of his bruised pride as much as his fear. Maybe this is a chance to confront him, to understand his intentions. The tension in the room thickened, charged as our eyes clustered together in a silent agreement, the air seemingly crackling with possibility and dread. What if he's just trying to manipulate us? Isabella whispered, her vulnerability cracking through the steely resolve she had portrayed. We could be walking right into a trap. It's a risk we have to weigh against doing nothing. If he knows we're onto him, Therese began. But I cut her off, the implications of her words igniting a nerve within me. He could come after all of us, not just Lucas, I said, the reality settling heavily in my chest. It was true, Lucas' father had an army of enforcers at his disposal, and the ramifications of our choices were evolving past personal consequence. Lucas ran a hand through his hair, his frustration boiling over. What if he does have something that will destroy everything we've built? What if it's something that could ruin our chance to reclaim my life? As fear threatened to consume him, Isabella stepped closer and touched his arm, her voice trembling. We won't let that happen. If you want to meet him, he'll be there with you. We'll think it through, strategize. Just promise me we'll do this together. The resolve in her eyes anchored Lucas' spiraling doubt, and gradually, he nodded. All right, he murmured, almost to himself. Well, meet him. With the decision made, I felt a sliver of hope seep in, as fragile as a thread in a fraying tapestry. Maybe our unity could shield us, could draw strength from our shared determination. But as I turned my gaze back to my phone, I noticed a seed of worry blossoming within me. When do we meet him? I asked, a hint of trepidation slicing through my newly found optimism. That a few hours, I admitted, my heart racing as I read the clock. The tendrils of anxiety curled around my thoughts, tightening their grip. He wants to meet after dark, behind Teresa's house. That a collective shudder passed through us, and the atmosphere grew thick with apprehension. Teresa clutched her apron, her expression betraying just how deeply the weight of our choices affected her. A woman opening her home only to realize all was far from safe. Then we prepare, she said, her voice resolute, yet tinted with the underlying flicker of fear. He'll make some tea. You two get ready, and let's tread carefully. The dark can be a deceptive ally to as we move to gather our thoughts. I felt the entanglement of family and choice looming before us like an unyielding specter. It wasn't just Lucas' heritage anymore. It now felt inseparable from Isabella's courage and Teresa's unwavering faith in our bond. The clock ticked louder, each second an echo of the impending confrontation. When we finally ventured towards the back of Teresa's house, shadows writhed beneath the gathering night, weaving a shroud of uncertainty all around us. And standing there, the reality hit me like a cold gust of wind. We were not just walking into Javier's world. We were stepping deeper into the shadows of our own fears, without knowing if there would ever be a light waiting on the other side. Just before darkness engulfed us, my phone buzzed again. Another message lighting up the screen, a chilling reminder of the stakes at play. Trust no one, it read. Not even your sister. My breath hitched in my throat as unease spiraled through me, and I felt the remnants of our fragile alliance start to tremble, fissures forming beneath our shared courage. The night loomed ahead, a thick curtain hiding the truth, and the chilling thought crept into my mind. Could it really be that someone among us was playing both sides? The chill of the evening air wrapped around us as we approached the designated meeting spot, an unlit corner behind Teresa's quaint little house, cloaked by overgrown bushes and the occasional flickering street lamp, casting long shadows that danced menacingly at our feet. I could hear our combined breaths mingling in the darkness, a symphony of anticipation and dread. Are we ready for this? Lucas asked, his voice low, edged with uncertainty. He stood between Isabella and me, both of us armed with a resolve that would need to defy not only Javier, but the fears lurking in the recesses of our minds. That I wanted to tell him we were prepared, that we could face whatever the night would bring. But the message from earlier clung to the back of my mind like a parasite, sapping away the fortitude I'd tried to summon. Trust no one, not even your sister. Whatever he throws at us, we face it together, Isabella responded, her voice a fragile thread weaving through the air. I could see her fingers entwined with Lucas, the commingling of warmth amidst the encroaching cold of what might soon come. The muted sounds of the city filtered in, distant cars humming through the rain-slicked streets. But here, it felt as if time had paused, holding its breath with us. The darkness felt heavy, almost alive, pressed against us in a suffocating embrace. The figure emerged, cutting through the shadows, the last person I expected. It was Javier, dressed in an all-black suit that screamed of power and arrogance. Yet his eyes betrayed something deeper, of fragility I had never associated with him before. Behind the polished veneer, something trembled, like a silk thread about to snap. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice laced with unexpected sincerity. He held up a hand, an ironic gesture that might typically signify peace, yet the air felt anything but calming. His gaze swept over each of us, as if searching for hidden truths in our expressions. "Isn't this a risky time for an invitation?" I interjected, trying to inject a note of levity into the dark surroundings, but the tremor in my voice gave me away. "You think you can dictate the time and place now?" He shot back, the coolness in his tone revealing tinges of anger, the mask slipping for just a moment. But before we could respond, Javier continued, "I have something to share, something that changes everything." His words hung in the air, thick with tension and anticipation that threatened to boil over. What could you possibly have to say that we would trust? Lucas stepped forward defensively, voice strong but quivering at the edges. How easy it was for him to waterfall between bravado and vulnerability just like the rest of us. Javier's gaze softened for a split second, revealing a trace of the boy I once knew, before it hardened again. "You're right to be cautious, Lucas. But this isn't just about you or your family anymore. It's about everyone who has been caught in the crossfire." My heart raced as the implications of his words wrapped around me like vine tendrils, squeezing breath out of my chest. The world was bigger than the pieces we had fit together, and Javier had cunningly drawn pieces from the corners we had chosen to forget. He reached into his pocket and withdrew an object, holding it delicately in his palm. "I have proof of the betrayal," he said, extending his arm toward Lucas. "Proof that can ensure your safety and expose secrets that can shatter everything." "What do you mean?" Isabella asked first, her brow creasing in confusion. Javier opened his palm, revealing a small flash drive that glimmered ominously in the dim light. "This contains evidence of dealings that could upend everything you thought you knew. I'm offering this to you not out of kindness, but out of necessity. I need you to understand the stakes here." "What kind of dealings?" My voice trembled as I tried to gauge if he was truly sincere or just unraveling another layer of deception. "Your sister," he said, his gaze flitting to me. "Your family's connections, it goes deeper than any of us realized." My stomach twisted violently, and I couldn't help but steal a glance at Isabella. I felt her scrutiny too, the tension coiling as if waiting to snap between us. "Who are you, Javier, and why should we believe you now?" Lucas asked, his protective instincts flaring in the face of uncertainty. "I am the same person who once stood by your family, but I've learned new truths. I couldn't stay blind to the corruption. It's your choice to heed this warning or let the darkness swallow you whole," Javier replied, his voice low but firm, a torrent of emotions battling within him. I felt my heart weigh heavy in the silence that stretched between us. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of shared pain between Lucas and Javier, a bond forged in the shadows of their pasts, yet tainted by betrayal and twisted by revenge. "It doesn't matter who we were," Lucas finally said, shaking his head slowly as if trying to push away the looming decision. "What matters is who we choose to be from this moment forward." The irony of Lucas' words struck me as both profound and painful. The truth in recognizing how easily one could lose themselves in the webs of others' chaos. "Take it," Javier urged, almost mumbling now, stepping cautiously closer. "But you need to be careful. No one can be trusted. The danger isn't just out there. There are treacheries within your circle as well." The weight of what he said hit us like a wave, the reality seeping into the corners of my mind with an insidious edge. Just then, my phone buzzed again, another pulse of anxiety in my pocket. I pulled it out and glanced at the message. My heart dropped as the words illuminated my face. "The truth you uncover tomorrow could shatter your world. Watch your back." The collective silence fractured as we turned to face the encroaching shadows, uncertainty blossoming like weeds in the cracks of our fragile facade. A betrayal on the horizon, a choice before us, and our world tipping dangerously on the edge of an unseen brink. As I stared at Javier, his tense posture flaring into clarity with every passing heartbeat, a chilling thought emerged. The darkness was not merely closing in, it was revealing itself in ways we had never anticipated. And as we stepped toward the unknown, I could sense that something irrevocable would change before the night came to a close. The night grew heavier as Javier's words clung to the air, swirling around us like the mist that bled in from the distant river. In that moment, the world became a fragile glass orb, shimmering yet precarious, waiting for the slightest misstep to shatter it completely. It was Isabella who broke the silence, her voice trembling yet resolute. "What do you mean by dangers within our circle?" It felt as if she were trying to delicately lift the lid off a festering wound, unsure of what might come spilling out. "You're not as safe as you think," Javier replied, his eyes darting between us, filled with a frenetic energy that hinted at a storm he had yet to fully reveal. "There are loyalties untested, secrets buried among people you trust. I may have made mistakes, but I wouldn't have come if I didn't think you needed to know this." That I glanced at Lucas, the tension etched in his jawline telling me he was weighing the gravity of Javier's words against the remnants of the past they shared. Ties that might hold him anchored to the very man standing before us now. "Let's just say there are forces beyond us, some lurking dangerously close." Javier's voice dropped, the urgency leaking through. "You can't afford to be naive. Not anymore." Every instinct screamed at me to take a step back, to retreat into the shadows where complexity yielded simplicity. But there was something undeniable about the depth of despair in Javier's gaze, something that drew me in. "Then let's hear it," Lucas finally said, his voice steadying despite the uncertainty coursing through him. "What are we facing?" As Javier began unraveling a tangled web of threats, I felt every word settle in my gut like stones being cast upon still water, rippling into threatening currents that could pull us under. There were named several familiar faces, trust shaking like leaves in the wind. Each revelation felt like a knife against my skin, precise and ruthless. Still, as darkness closed around us, there was a flicker of kindness in the bleakness. A neighbor, an elderly gentleman who had taken to feeding stray cats near Teresa's house, stepped out from his shadowy sanctuary, offering us mugs of hot cocoa, blessed warmth against the cold desolation. This unexpected act sent a wave of relief washing over us, a reminder of small rays of goodness that could persist even in overwhelming dread. "Point two may not know everything, but I've been watching, and I can't let you folks hurt," he murmured with a warmth that felt like a light in the fog. It was a brief moment that resonated in stark contrast to the heavy discourse, reminding us of the human connections we held dear even amidst the storm. His voice droned into the background of my thoughts. I couldn't shake the implications of this new information. Trust numbingly unspooled between us like frayed threads, and I hesitated, wondering if it was all too late for us. Were we stepping into a dark room without knowing what lay ahead? But just as Javier began to share details about our enemies, a network of deceit stretching far beyond our immediate lives, my phone buzzed insistently in my pocket. Ignoring the noise felt impossible. Hope was both a lifeline and a source of anxiety, and my heart thudded as I pulled it out. It was another anonymous message. "You're closer than you think. Tonight will not end as you expect. Trust no one." My pulse quickened, and fear flooded my veins. I shot a glance at Lucas and Isabella. The collective confusion turned to apprehension as we exchanged unspoken recognition. The stakes were alarmingly real. "Who sent this?" I muttered, feeling the walls close in as the air became dense with paranoia. Could it be a warning or a stone thrown into the murky waters of our lives? Javier's expression changed, the sincerity of his earlier demeanor shifting into something fiercely protective. "You need to understand, the danger isn't just about the enemies you see. It's about those who claim to be your allies but are waiting for a moment of weakness to strike." His eyes locked with mine, a silent plea flickering between us. "If you want to survive, stay close." "Trust in what?" "I can help you see." As fear clawed within, something sharpened in me, a resolve to cling tightly to what scraps of faith remained. The night's chill deepened, and with it, something new settled in my heart, a nagging sensation that betrayal lurked not only beyond our grasp, but extremely close. I resolved to confront the truth, gathering every ounce of courage I had. "Then we'll face it together, but only if you commit to this. We're done with shadows." That moment, the sound of approaching footsteps broke the fragile silence. My heart raced as new fear coiled around Mujo was stepping into our precarious circle. The shadows shifted unnervingly, and a familiar figure emerged ahead, gripping a folder tightly. "Did someone say betrayal?" came a voice only too recognizable, the twisted delusion of sweetness lingering, a voice that sent a shudder through me as the darkness began to bleed into our fragile sanctuary. The figure stepped forward, the light from the flickering street lamp revealing a face I thought I had left behind long ago. It was Amelia. Dressed impeccably, she was like a mirage emerging from the storm, a personification of every unfinished chapter and unresolved emotion. My heart sank as if it was dragged deeper into the abyss, her presence ready to ignite old flames or deepen our wounds. "What are you doing here?" I managed to choke out, my throat tightening as if trying to contain the rush of memories that threatened to spill forth. Her expression shifted from surprise to something more guarded. "I came to find you, all of you." Her gaze swept over the group, resting softly on Lucas, before landing on Javier. The tension in the air heightened, sharp and palpable. "It's not safe here," Javier warned, stepping forward instinctively, protective in nature. "You shouldn't have come." "Actually," Amelia responded, her voice steadying but tinged with an underlying strain, "and the reason you're in danger right now." Each word hung heavy as it pierced through the fog of uncertainty surrounding us, and I felt a pang of both betrayal and curiosity. "What do you mean?" Lucas asked, his confusion evident, but I could sense a flicker of something more, recognition that there were layers to this encounter, both between Amelia and him and between all of us. "Because there are things I didn't tell you," she replied, glancing towards the street, her body language revealing a flicker of vulnerability. "Secrets that put you all at risk. Two have receipts that might change the game." "What kind of receipts?" I pressed, a surge of adrenaline rushing through me. Was this the lifeline we needed, or just another ripple threatening to sink us deeper? "The financials, transactions that tie to the threats Javier mentioned," she said, her eyes darting around as if we were being watched. "I discovered this after her voice faltered, and I could see she was struggling with demons of her own my thoughts swirled. So many questions flooded my mind: trust, loyalty, and the weight of the choices we had all made. Could she have known all along? But why come now? Why not warn us before?" Lucas pressed, frustration rising. Even amidst the chaos, there was an innate bond of protectiveness within him, one I admired. She inhaled deeply, the air trembling in her lungs like a fragile note longing to be played. "Because I didn't know who I could trust either. I was afraid, and I thought if I stayed away, it would be safer for everyone." Isabella stepped in closer, her brows furrowing together. "But we need you now. If there are forces at play manipulating our lives, we have to stand together. You can't suddenly." The soft crunch of gravel interrupted us. The comforting warmth from the elderly neighbor who had offered cocoa felt distant. Now the shadows loomed larger with every passing second. Amelia's expression shifted. "We're not alone. They know we're here." My heart pounded, and then a sound like soft whispers seeped from the nearby alley, creeping with dread into the pit of my stomach. Thoughts spiraled. Did we truly grasp the depth of danger surrounding us? Trust felt like a fragile thread, ready to snap under the weight of our predicament. "Where do we go?" I murmured, already tasting the bitter aftertaste of regret. My instincts kicked in. Here we were, drawn together by tragedies of the past as fresh threats danced around us. Amelia's eyes widened in alarm, but she nodded, understanding. "I have a place, an old apartment where we can lay low temporarily," she said, glancing towards the darkness that felt increasingly alive. We had no better option than to follow her. Sensing the urgency, I rallied the group together, every instinct in me screaming that this wasn't a time for hesitation, but our only way forward. We started moving towards the entrance of the alley, where the shadows stretched and twisted. I felt a sudden heaviness in the air, like the calm before a storm. Thoughts of betrayal loomed large. Could Amelia truly be trusted, or was she leading us into an even darker territory, one lined with the very secrets that had shackled our past? The apprehension hung thick, a haunting symphony echoing in our silence. Just as we reached the alley's mouth, another text pinged on my phone, a cold reminder that we were far from security. "Do you really think she's on your side? The truth is coming, and it will break you." It felt as though the ground beneath us began to quake with uncertainty as we stepped into the encroaching darkness. I could feel my heart race, battling against an emotion both terrifying and exhilarating. With every step, a thread of fate tightened, weaving us into an unraveling tapestry that bore the weight of our intertwined lives. Behind me, I could sense the fragile bonds of our newly woven circle. It could either hold or snap. But as we moved deeper into uncertainty, one thing remained agonizingly clear. We were about to face a truth that would shatter everything we thought we knew, whether we were ready or not. The apartment Amelia led us to was forsaken but functional, a relic of better days that had seen love and laughter slip through cracks in its walls. As the door creaked open, I was reminded of the weight of history, the air heavy with unspoken secrets, memories dancing like dust in the soft light filtering through the grimy windows. I took a deep breath, a mix of apprehension and determination coursing through me as we stepped across the threshold. The dimly lit space was cramped, with old furniture swathed in faded fabric and scattered boxes filled with forgotten relics of a life once cherished. We needed to regroup, but the enormity of our situation loomed like a storm cloud, gathering over us with each heartbeat. As we settled in, I stole a glance at Lucas. He stood by the window, his silhouette outlined by flickering streetlights, lost in thought. The uncertainty of our next move weighed heavily on him. "Lucas," I said softly, stepping toward him. "We'll find a way through this. We're in this together." He turned to me, the pain in his eyes reflecting not just the heat of the present, but also the shadows of the past. "But what if this isn't just about what's outside? What if we can't trust Amelia?" His voice cracked as fear gripped him. "Javier warned us to be cautious of everyone," I admitted, the sting of betrayal cutting through me as I mentioned his name. "But we can't face it alone." My heart ached for him. The lines of his face were carved with the weight of his family's legacy, one that had been tainted by deceit and greed. Just then, Amelia interrupted our fragile moment, her breaths quickening as she closed the door behind her. "We don't have much time," she urged, her eyes darting around the room as if she could feel invisible eyes watching us. "They might come looking for us." "Who?" Isabella asked, her voice steady but laced with concern. "You don't understand. It's deeper than Javier's betrayal. There are others involved," Amelia replied. Her demeanor shifted, the gravity of her words anchoring my heart in dread. I didn't want to believe it, but there's a faction working against your family, Lucas. And it transcends anything you realized. "What do you mean?" Lucas pressed, every muscle in his body coiled like a spring waiting to snap. "There are alliances that your father forged underneath those shiny boardroom walls. There's corruption festering. I've seen the papers and the transactions that link him to Javier. They're tied together by blood, money, and power. Your father doesn't care who gets hurt. He sees it as collateral if it means maintaining control." Her words fastened themselves around our throats. Lucas clenched his fists, imbibing the weight of her revelations. "You wanted to protect me by keeping this secret?" he asked, disbelief morphing into outrage. "You should have come to me sooner." "I know," she shot back, her voice thick with frustration. "But after what happened with Sarah, I thought it best to distance myself until I had solid evidence. I didn't want to drag you further into chaos." With each unfolding layer, a vortex of anger, fear, and sorrow began to swirl within the room. It was as though we were trapped in a tide threatening to pull us under. "Chaos is exactly what we're in," I whispered, gripping the edge of a table to steady myself. "Every decision we make now is a step deeper into unknown waters. Then we have to be smart about this." "We need a plan," Lucas said, striving to regain the authority that felt so elusive. "What do we need to know? How do we end this once and for all?" A motion from the corner of my eye caught my attention. I turned to find Amelia digging through a beaten-up box filled with old files and folders. "You need to see this," she replied, pulling out several documents adorned with familiar names. "This is just the tip of the iceberg. It's all connected to your father's business dealings, Javier. The mishaps in your town, they're all pieces of the puzzle. Bring them here," Lucas commanded, urgency etching every syllable that as she laid the papers before us. I felt the walls close in, the danger becoming very real. Each name and transaction felt like a stake, twisted deeper into the family roots that bound us. The truth was laid bare, a treachery woven into our lives. Each revelation a twist of the knife pressing into our hearts. Just as I was ready to speak, my phone buzzed again, vibrating with an unwelcome notification that made us all freeze. I glanced at the screen, a feeling of doom washing over me as I read the words. "Be careful who you trust. The truth is never what it seems." "What now?" Lucas asked, dread pooling in his stomach as he caught sight of my expression. "It's a warning," I murmured, my eyes flickering nervously between Lucas and Amelia. But from who? Is it another threat from Javier, or something more sinister? Amelia's eyes darkened, shadowed by the fears of our looming fate. We can't afford to be naive. There are traps opening up everywhere we turn. But we don't have time to fall apart. Lucas thrust his hands through his hair, leaning against the wall like it would support him against the rising pressure. We need evidence now. Something irrefutable to stand against my father. There might be more than just papers we can use, Amelia asserted, her determination rekindling as she faced us. We need to find out where Javier is hiding the rest of the documentation. If we can get a hold of it, it could be our salvation. The apartments where he conducts his business, I interjected. Those withdrawals, transfers, it has to be there. He's hiding something, and it's time we uncovered it. Lucas released a breath he had been holding. You're right. We can navigate through this together. Those files could lead us straight to exposing this entire operation. What do you suggest? Isabella asked, her eyes flickering between us, the anticipation threading through the room. They'll gather resources, find people who can help us dig deeper into these shady dealings, Amelia replied, a fire igniting within her. You stay here for now. It's too dangerous to move, at least until we figure out what comes next. Before I could respond, there came a sudden knock at the door, heavy and deliberate, sending a chill racing up my spine. Lucas shot a glance at me, both of us weighed down by a sense of dread. Who is it? He demanded, his voice tight, like a wire stretched to breaking, that we can't act on impulse. Stay calm, Amelia whispered, eyes darting to the makeshift exits in case we needed to flee. A voice broke through the silence. It's me. Let me in. The entreaty sounded desperate, but convincing, one that sent my heart racing as I recognized the voice. It's Sarah, the urgency called out again, and I could hear the emotion lacing her tone, the familiar music that ranked higher than the chaos surrounding us. Lucas turned slowly, his expression softening as the realization settled in. Open the door, he instructed, his voice steadying as his mind raced with possibility. As Amelia echoed his sentiment, I felt a surge of unity tether pulling us closer even amidst the chaos. Sarah, the embodiment of compassion and light, had shown the courage to join our tumultuous dance. The door swung open, and there she stood, drenched from the rain, knotted hair framing her determined face. Please, I need to talk. I was just at the hospital and overheard something, she blurted, her voice tinged with urgency. What did you hear? I pressed, a sense of hope fluttering within me. About Lucas' father and the plans they have for the factory, she gasped, hurriedly stepping inside, as if her mere presence could serve as a shield. I can't explain everything now, but it's worse than we thought. They're planning something that will break us apart. And in that moment, as the room began to buzz with overlaid concerns, I realized that amidst the swirling storm of betrayals and secrets, kindness and unity were our greatest weapons. We were like a mosaic, each piece flawed yet beautiful, piecing together a new truth from all the shadows of our pasts. In the face of what loomed ahead, I felt something shift within me. No longer alone in the confusion, I grasped Lucas' hand tightly, drawing strength from his presence, knowing that together we would face whatever storms were brewing on the horizon. The door had swung wide, embracing the warmth of hope, and as we huddled close, a fire ignited within one that could light our path through the encroaching darkness as we prepared to confront not only the demons of our pasts, but also those who sought to weaponize our truths. Tomorrow, we'll unveil their secrets together, I told Lucas, feeling emboldened by the strength of our unity. And as we adjusted ourselves amidst whispers of uncertainty, I felt a bemusing sense of purpose entwining around us. Together, we would forge ahead into the unknown, confronting the truth lurking just beyond the veil, ready to fight against whatever forces sought to tear us apart. With a newfound resolve igniting within us, I muttered softly, together, we can rise above the shadows. It was there, in that cramped and forsaken apartment, that we forged our very own light, ready to embrace whatever awaited us beyond our familiar doors. But amidst everything, I wondered, would this newfound alliance be enough to shield us? Or would the shadows of the past reclaim their power and consume the fragile flicker of kindness we had so desperately clung to? And despite the uncertainties ahead, The one truth remained clear: it was time to dance not just with shadows, but to blaze through the dark with the light of our own choosing.